Hey, welcome to Half the Battle, sort of. Look, I'll be honest with you, I have a very busy weekend with happy family engagements and a fun event I'm attending in my hometown. I thought I'd be able to put an episode together, but it just isn't happening. And honestly, I had forgotten that April had 5 Tuesdays in it, so I wasn't prepared to do 5 episodes on average characters. That's why I'm gonna have to give myself a break, especially since I need to concentrate on getting main character May going, which is coming next week. So, with apologies, today you're getting the Grunt episode, both parts in one video. Enjoy, and I'll be back next week.
He's just a common man, working hard with his hands.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Today, we're doing the exact opposite of main character May.
So, minor character May? Yeah, let's go with that.
We're taking a look at G.I. Joe's quintessential everyman who's simply called Grunt. So meet Grunt version 1.5. Yeah, this is technically the second figure Grunt got. That means it was released in 1983 with no original body parts, well, except the elbow joint, I guess. Yeah, the very first 1982 G.I. Joe figures did not have elbow joints and were all re-released in 83 with swivel arm battle grip. I don't have the original 1982 one to show you. And actually, there is another difference, as the green patches on his upper arm are in front on the 83 version, but on the side on the original. Also, there's a slimmer waist piece.
Anyway, let's talk about the figure itself.
It looks like a generic soldier, which I guess is the whole point of a guy called Grunt, though the same description holds true for a few other of the original Joes, which was Hasbro's design choice of 82. I think this one looks nice.
The head sculpt, though?
That is one ugly mug. It's reused a few times, but man, that is not an attractive face. Oh, in case you're wondering, I'm not removing the helmet out of fear of damaging the hair paint. This thing is over 40 years old after all. Detailing is pretty decent for a figure from 1983, though there would be far more paint nowadays, like on the grenade on the chest and the pockets on the legs. His accessories, apart from the helmet, were a black M16 gun and a green backpack, simple yet elegant. And that's the way you could describe the figure overall, simple yet elegant. That head though. Oh, and if you want to see it without the helmet,
I got you, fam.
meet Grunt version 2, or Tan Grunt as he's known. This figure was also released in 1983, and again with no original body parts. He came with a Falcon glider. Fans called him Tan Grunt because, get this, he's mostly tan colored.
Shocking revelation, I know.
And seeing his hair somehow makes the head look even worse, as he's got a beginning widowspeak thing going on there. The figure is rarer since it came with a big-ass working glider, so fewer were sold than the carded ones, and kids tended to play with the glider, leading to lost or damaged figures. He also came with a helmet. Honestly, I don't have any more to say about this toy really. I like the original colors better.
There is, however, more to say about that next figure Grunt got 8 frickin' years later.
So meet Grunt version 3. Damn, Grunt, what have they done to you? This figure was released in 1991 with all original body parts. The first Grunt to have that honor, as even the first one shared parts with the other 1982 figures. Okay, now, I'm no fashionista,
Clearly.
but even I know those pants do not go with that shirt. I don't think they go with anything that's worn outside of a circus. The torso looks fine, nothing special, and it's the only part of the figure that's presentable. Because for some reason they made the head sculpt be constantly screaming. It's quite distracting and a little unnerving. This is just a weird toy overall. It's even weirder that it exists at all.
But we'll get to that when we talk about the character.
For accessories, he had a missile launcher because the 90s and a gun.
I don't want to talk about those. What I do want to talk about is the helmet.
Doesn't that look familiar? Yeah, it looks like Hawk's helmet, only in soft plastic and with a black paint application. Dude stole Hawk's helmet, so might tend to give it back to him if I find one. Overall, yeah, this is the weirdest Grunt figure and the last one from the original line.
Still, could be worse.
May I present to you worse? Meet Grunt version 4. This figure was released in the infamous 1997 G.I. Joe toy line as part of the Stars and Stripes Forever set.
And boy does it show!
We're back to having no original body parts as it's a repaint of version 1.5. Well, except the legs, which are from the original Snake Eyes for some reason. This time the problem is the shirt. Does it look military?
No!
Does it look like any camouflage that might exist?
Also no!
The day they designed this thing must have been Bring Your Kid to Work Day, because it looks like a 3-year-old tried to paint what he thought camouflage might look like. I mean, it kinda reminds me of a potted plant, so good job, I guess? Oh, 1997, you never failed to disappoint me.
We're now entering the modern era and the year 2003 when Grunt got no less than 3 figures.
The first one, with all original body parts, the others repaints of that one. I can show you 2 of them. One, version 5, came with the Battle Blitz, a really silly little vehicle I reviewed years ago. The other, version 6, came with a pretty gangsta Destro figure. They're almost identical, but there are subtle differences, like 5 doesn't have painted knee pads or shoe soles. And Grunt here has become quite a beefy dude, hasn't he? Check out those muscles.
These figures suffer from a common problem that G.I. Joe toys of the time had.
Namely, that their legs and waist are too tall compared to the torso. You really notice this when you put them next to a figure from the original line. The nice thing about these versions is that they still look like grunts, both as the character and as well a grunt. Once you add the helmet, you kinda get a Colonial Marines vibe from Aliens. Overall, I quite like them, they look good.
In 2004, we got yet another take on Grunt as part of a comic book 3-pack.
Meet Grunt version 8. This figure has a new head sculpt, but his body is reused from the 1994 Action Marine and Action Soldier toys. This figure is meant to resemble the way he looks in the comic he came packaged with, a reprint of issue 4, where he and Hawk infiltrated Doomsday Prepper's compound. It kinda looks like the uniform, I guess, but it's not a very good match. It is the most beefy looking one out of all the grunts though, and after the last patch, that is saying something.
There were a few modern body construction versions of Grunt, but I don't have any of those.
Well, except for the classic figure, the last to come out. It looks pretty good and is nicely detailed, but like all these figures, it's just too tall. There was also a classified figure released in 2023.
I do want to bring up a few things regarding the figures I don't have.
There were 2 more recolors of the version 5 figure, one of which was a Night Force version that didn't really resemble anything the original Night Force looked like. There was a convention exclusive figure in 2007 that honestly doesn't feel like Grunt at all. Though that set did have some excellent figures in it, like Doc and women as Cobra Troopers. In 2008 and 2009, 2 Grunt figures were each part of 2 different Toys R Us exclusive sets called Senior Ranking Officers.
Which has gotta be an in-joke or something, considering he's supposed to be a Grunt.
To add insult to insult, the Rise of Cobra version of that is just a repainted Zartan figure. The only other 2 grunts were a Collectors Club exclusive and a Comic-Con exclusive. And those were the toys!
To wrap up, what's my favorite figure?
Well, to be honest, none of the grunt figures are great. Gun to my head, the 2003 version looks the best, so I'll go with that. But I do acknowledge the iconic status of the first 2 versions. As for worst, once again, not easy. Quality-wise, it's the 1997 one, but because of the overall weirdness, not to mention that stupid shouting face, I'll go with the 1991 version. Do let me know your own favorite and least favorite version in the comments below.
Next time, we'll be taking a look at the character, starting with the file card.
That's right, this is gonna be a 2-parter. You wouldn't expect there'd be a lot to say about a character named Grunt, but you'd be quite surprised. So join me next time in this average character April or whatever. Last time we looked at all the toys Grunt got, so today, as promised, we're gonna discuss the character.
Starting with the file card.
And at the very top of the first file card it says, well, it says Infantry Trooper, but right below that is the important bit. Codename Grunt.
And that says it all, doesn't it?
The name Grunt tells you everything you need to know about the character. He's a grunt. He's your everyman, your average Joe, the heart and soul of any military unit.
Essentially, he is G.I. Joe.
He's more of an idea than a character, if only because the text on the card itself tells you very little about what he's actually like.
But we'll get to that.
His real name is Robert W. Graves. The character may have been named after Captain Robert Graves, an English soldier, poet and author who served in the First World War. Though he wasn't a grunt, he started out as an officer. He's the guy who wrote I Claudius, amongst many other things. His primary specialty is infantry, duh, and second one is small arms armorer artillery coordinator.
Or SAC, as nobody but me calls it.
Also, armorer is misspelled, or at least the preferred spelling is with an E at the end instead of an O. His rank is that of E4, which would make him either a corporal or a specialist. Which is interesting since I'd expect somebody called Grunt to just have the rank of private or private first class. The body of the text states he's familiar with all kinds of small arms weapons out there, and he graduated from the advanced infantry class in the top 10. He's highly motivated, systematic, and doesn't lose his cool in a firefight.
So yeah, not that much info is given about our everyman here.
Dan Grunt's file card is nearly identical to the first, though it does add Falcon Pilot to it. The biggest changes come with the 1991 file card, and has surprisingly a lot of continuity. He's been bumped up a rank to E5, making him a sergeant. His primary specialty is also changed to infantry squad leader, which makes sense given his rank increase.
No mention of the Falcon glider though.
The card mentions he was one of the original Joes, but left to go to college and get an engineering degree at Georgia Tech.
This is something that happened in the comics, but we'll get to that later.
Huh, interesting that they didn't go with what happened to him in the cartoon.
We'll get to that later too.
He rejoined the Joes for one more tour of duty because they needed him and the business world wasn't his thing. We get a bit more personality as he grumbles but gets the job done, which is pretty much the highest compliment you can give a soldier.
See, this card I like.
It's nice to see the character evolve from, well, a grunt to a grumpy sarge leading others into battle. Pity about the figure though. The 1997 card gives him another bump in rank to E6 or Staff Sergeant, and also mentions him leaving the team, only to rejoin when the Joes reorganized. Oh yeah, there is some limited continuity in the 97 line, with the file cards at least. The Joes disbanded, then rebanded a few years later. Also, the 97 card seems to show Clutch, not Grunt, because the 1997 toy line always seems to find new ways to suck.
All the 2003 and 2004 file cards are virtually identical.
With the only difference being some omit a paragraph. These cards mention he uses what he learned in college to engineer new devices and weapons for the Joes, which I feel enriches the character and makes me wonder why earlier cards didn't include this. It's also on the card of the comic book figure, which is a mistake since that toy portrays him as he was in issue 4 before he left the Joes.
The cards also state that Grunt is a land of contrasts.
Dislikes authority, but will follow orders. Independent, yet works well with others. Shrewd, yet believes professional wrestling is real.
It's still real to him, damn it!
Okay, that must have led to some awkward conversations with Sergeant Slaughter. I mean, explain the whole Iraq sympathizer thing. All later file cards just rehash stuff we've already seen, though his rank tends to jump around a bit from E4 to E6.
That brings us to other media, and we'll start with the comics.
Grunt makes his debut in issue 1, along with all the original Joes, and he sure is there. Yeah, he shows up, and that's pretty much all I can say.
Look, he isn't featured in many issues.
His most prominent role being issue 4, where, as we discussed last time, he infiltrates a Doomer compound. He also deactivates a nuclear bomb through pure strength, so he's got that going for him. He left the Joe team in issue 55 to go to college, but would show up on occasion later. He offered to help rescue the Joes held prisoner in Barovia, and helped the team when most of them were arrested after the Cobra Civil War. Now, he wasn't in too many issues, but he was on a lot of them.
Let me explain.
Yeah, that corner icon that's in the top left of every Marvel comic. For G.I. Joe, that's Grunt. and he was on there for almost every issue up to and including the 100th. Only then was it briefly replaced with Cobra Commander, and after that the inevitable Snake Eyes. But for the longest time, Grunt was G.I. Joe, or at least the ultimate representation of it.
As far as the cartoon goes,
Grunt sure was there, in the background, as befitting the name. Though I do mean that in more ways than one. You see, a bit similar to the corner icon, Grunt's model was also the basis for all those green shirts running around.
making him once again the true G.I. Joe.
His only significant role was ironically in the two-parter that saw him leave the series, and that wasn't even focused on him but on Steeler. In Worlds Without End, Steeler, Grunt, and other Joes were trapped in an alternate dimension where Cobra ruled the world. In the end, Steeler, him and Clutch elected to stay there and rebuild the alternate Joe team to fight Cobra. That wouldn't stop him from showing up in the background in later episodes though, because animation errors.
Still, Grunt was officially MIA.
And that makes it weird that he showed up in the D cartoon, which was supposed to be in continuity with Sunbow, even getting a starring role in the episode El Dorado. This was to promote the 1991 figure, of course, but why they'd make one is beyond me, considering he had been written out of both the comic and the cartoon specifically, a rare occurrence for sure, as most older characters just faded into the background and left without any explanation.
There is a theory that somebody mentioned in the comment section of part 1.
Was that maybe this was supposed to be a Hawk figure given the helmet and brown shirt, the same color as Hawk's jacket, which is possible, but Hawk got a jetpack figure that same year, so I don't know. Grunt did show up in more modern comics, getting back on the Joe team,
But I haven't read most of them, so I can't really comment.
and that was Grunt the character.
What can we take away from this?
Well, as for the person, he's a success story of somebody joining the military, then going to college and making good. Or being stuck in a hell dimension, but let's ignore that, Deke sure did.
What's more important is what the character represents.
He's the ultimate G.I. Joe! And I don't mean he's the big damn hero that saves the day like, say, Duke or Snake Eyes. No, he embodies the idea of a G.I. Joe. A regular soldier who gets the job done. The corner icon and the green shirt support me in this. So, don't think of Grunt as just a background character. Think of him as truly being G.I. Joe. Because he is. Strange, isn't it, how an average character can be anything but average?
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody, and hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?
He's just a common man, working hard with his hands. He's just a common man.